Hillary Clinton wasn't the only diplomat in the Middle East today. The UN Secretary General was there too, and ahead of today's ceasefire, Ban Ki-moon was telling Israel to use, quote, maximum restraint in dealing with Hamas. But why didn't he tell the terrorists to do the same? Claudia Rosett, sick of what she's calling the UN's tilt to terrorists. Claudia Rosett. Claudia, it wasn't only the UN Secretary General, it was also the Turkish Prime Minister who also said, hey, Israel, calm down. What's going on in the Middle East?
Well, part of the battleground here is diplomatic, and presumably one of the goals of the Hamas terrorist leadership in Gaza and its fellow brethren terrorists there is to delegitimize Israel. This has been a constant push and campaign, and unfortunately the UN lends itself as a vehicle for exactly that, for translating terrorist attacks, which absolutely shouldn't be going on, into diplomatic gains in the sense of looking for ways to damage Israel. And this instruction for maximum restraint is just an excellent case in point.
Claudia, many have said Egypt is the key to peace in the Middle East, at least that region of the Middle East. Has Egypt redeemed herself, given what we know now? I mean, there was a point where Mohammed Morsi, who's a Muslim Brotherhood disciple, let's call him, there was a question whether or not he was going to side with Israel or with Hamas. He seems to have sided with Israel. Is that right? Am I interpreting this right?
I think we wait to see where he sided, because the real test of this isn't what deal they agreed to. It's what now happens with the weapons that have been flowing into Gaza. And we know that this is an enclave stuffed with munitions and which fired Iranian-made missiles into Israel. Will that now stop? You know, these probably aren't flowing in through the Israeli crossings. They come in through Egypt.
Sure, they come in through allegedly come in through the tunnels on the Egypt-Gaza border. But the question, I would have to assume, and again, it's an assumption, that Israel wouldn't agree to a ceasefire unless Egypt was willing to cut off that arms supply, correct?
I think that Israel is subject to all sorts of extraordinary pressures and constraints precisely because of the diplomatic war that is effectively waged with the help of the UN. You know, you have the UN runs a refugee agency headquartered in Gaza that is dedicated exclusively to Palestinian refugees, and it also effectively serves as sort of a press center, advocacy center for basically for the Hamas leadership in Gaza when these hostilities break out. The formula, what happens is there is a ritual recitation by the UN that the rockets should stop the terrorist attack out of Gaza, and then they say, and Israel must exercise complete restraint, and then they condemn Israel for what it is doing in its own defense. For the entire year, for month after month of this year, these rockets were hitting Israel, and Israel's ambassador to the UN was pleading with the UN Security Council to do something. Month after month, hundreds and hundreds of rockets. Not until Israel finally took action in its own defense did the UN treat this as a crisis.
Claudia, we're going to have to leave it there, but we need to point out that a lot of these rockets, a good percentage, a big percentage of the rockets that were flown into Israel through Gaza, from Gaza, were Iranian-made. Very quickly.
Yeah. Oh, Hamas is Iranian-backed, trained, supported, funded. And these are missiles with a longer range than it has had. They can hit Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. This is getting very dangerous. And remember, Iran also backs the terrorist group Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon.
Claudia, you have to leave it there. We're running out of time.